There comes a moment, child, when your soul grows weary of the noise. It doesn't crave another scroll or sermon, another voice competing for your attention, or another screen lighting your face like some neon angel of distraction. No, what your soul longs for is stillness. Just a flicker, a breath, a holy hush in the chaos of your day. Heaven leans down in that sacred sliver of time, not asking you to climb a mountain or carve out an hour, but gently whispering, just stay with me. 15 seconds, beloved, that's all. It's not long enough to cook a meal. Not long enough to finish a thought. But it is more than enough time for God to break your chains, for peace to kiss your spirit, for clarity to return like light through a crack in the door. We live in a world that moves like wildfire, consuming every quiet corner. But your soulier sacred, aching soul was never built for this speed. It was made for quiet, for presence, for intimacy. And God, in all His mercy, kneels into your whirlwind, pleading not for your perfection, not for your performance, just your pause. Stay, He whispers. Just stay for 15 seconds. Ask ChatGPT. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is simply stop. Not to say anything profound. Not to share it online. Not to hustle your way through another task. Just stop. Just pause. The world keeps spinning faster than our hearts were ever meant to beat, and before you've even finished one thought, tomorrow is already tapping on your shoulder, demanding your attention. You try to pray, but the words get caught in your throat, tangled in worry and weariness. But listen closely, God isn't asking for a performance. He's not tallying your achievements or measuring your devotion by how much you can do. He's whispering, with the quiet patience of eternity, give me just 15 seconds of your heart. Not your polished words. Not your solutions. Not your strength. Just your presence. In those sacred seconds, you don't need to fix a thing. You don't need to have it together. You don't need to have the right words or the perfect posture. Just breathe. Just be. That's all He's asking for. A pause, a moment, a small surrender in the middle of your whirlwind. Because sometimes, the most powerful prayer is the one without words. Just your breath, your stillness, your willingness to be with Him, heart open, hands quiet, soul at rest. There is a quiet kind of strength that lives in stillness, a holy kind of power that rises not from movement, but from the courage to stop. Rest isn't weakness, child, it's wisdom, a wisdom this world often forgets. The world will try to convince you that if you're not running, you're falling behind. But God sees it differently. He says, no, beloved, you're not behind, you're finally catching up to me. In the still places, heaven draws near. God doesn't wait at the finish line of your hustle. He meets you in the pause. In the silence, in the sacred hush between all the striving. Even if your hands are trembling and your heart is heavy, even if your soul is stretched thin, stillness is where He shows up, not to demand more from you, but to simply be with you, to hold space with your sorrow, to breathe peace into your tired places. Don't let the weight of your past or the ticking of the clock convince you to keep moving when your soul is begging to rest. Don't let shame lie to you and tell you, stillness is laziness. Stillness is sacred. It is where the divine meets the broken without judgment, where mercy holds the undone without pressure to perform. In the quiet, God doesn't shout, He stays. And sometimes, that is the greatest miracle of all. Ask ChatGPT. You say, but I've got mouths to feed. I've got wounds that won't stop bleeding. I've got too much going on to slow down. And I hear why, I really do. Life pulls hard, and your heart is carrying more than it was ever meant to bear, alone. But let me speak this truth in love. You don't have time not to pause. You can't afford to rush past the well when your soul is parched and cracking. You can't keep pouring from a spirit that hasn't sat still long enough to be refilled. God isn't asking for your perfection. He's not impressed by your ability to hold it all together while quietly falling apart. He's not waiting for you to earn a moment of peace. He is asking for your presence. Just your presence, not your flawless faith, not your polished prayers, just you. As you are. You don't need to speak in tongues. You don't need to quote the right verse. You don't need to stage a performance. All you need to do is breathe. Breathe and let God be God. That's it. Let Him meet you in the stillness, in the middle of your chaos, your grief, your exhaustion. Because when you finally stop running, even just for a few seconds, you open the door for Him to walk in and carry what you were never meant to hold alone. Ask ChatGPT. In just 15 seconds, everything can shift. God doesn't need an hour to move mountains in your heart. He only needs a moment, a whisper, a breath. In that small pocket of stillness, He leans in close and speaks the kind of truth that silences every lie you've carried. He doesn't come with thunder. He comes with tenderness. A quiet touch on your back, a gentle word to your weary soul. I've been here all along. Stillness isn't emptiness. It's not a void. It's fullness. It's presence. It's the sacred space where your soul exhales and remembers who it really is, not what the world told you. Not what fear whispered in the dark, but what God planted deep within you from the very beginning. That you are loved. That you are seen. That you are not alone. God doesn't fight for your attention in the noise. He waits for you in the quiet. Not to scold, but to remind you. In the space between one inhale and the next heartbreak, there, He is steady, kind, and sure. The stillness becomes His sanctuary. It's where heaven finds you again. Where peace flows in like morning light. Where your heart, even for a few sacred seconds, can rest in what is eternal and unshakable. You've been crying out, God, speak to me, hoping for answers, for direction, for something loud enough to rise above the noise in your life. But all this time, He's been gently responding, be still and know that I am God. His voice isn't in the chaos or the clamor, it's in the hush, in the quiet corners of your surrender. Stillness has always been His first language, silence, His sacred invitation. When you finally quiet the noise, when you dare to step out of the whirlwind and into the calm, that's when you'll hear Him not in a thunderclap, but in a whisper. And oh, what a whisper it is! It doesn't shame you, it doesn't scold, it doesn't confuse or bruise your tender heart, it soothes, it steadies, it restores. That voice might say, you are still loved, even after everything. It might gently urge, let them go. Or it might simply hold you with the quiet reassurance of, I'm here. And that whisper, that holy, healing whispers what your soul has been aching for all along. Not more noise. Not more answers. Just Him. Just that sacred sound of love that finds you when you've finally stopped long enough to listen. Stillness heals in ways nothing else can. Not through thunder, not through fire, not through doing more or trying harder. Healing comes in the hishin, that sacred quiet where your soul can finally breathe. You don't have to perform or prove anything. You only have to be still long enough to let the mending begin. We miss so many of God's miracles because we're moving too fast to catch them. We outrun the grace meant to meet us. We stay busy, hoping motion will fix the ache, but healing rarely happens at full speed. It happens when we stop, when we pause, when we hush all the noise inside and around us. That's when peace finds you. That's when love wraps around your weary shoulders. That's when the ache for belonging begins to soften, because He doesn't need your volume, He needs your openness. And in that stillness, the Holy Spirit doesn't come crashing in like a storm. He doesn't demand or overwhelm. He enters like a friend. Quiet, kind, familiar. He sits beside you. No rush, no pressure, just presence, just love. In the hush, you begin to feel whole again. Not because you earned it, but because you finally made room to receive it. You don't have to perform when you come to God. He's not drawn to showmanship or spiritual theatrics. He's not waiting for a perfect version of you to appear, dressed in the right words or masked in strength. What He's looking for is honesty, the kind that strips away pretense and simply says, here I am. You don't have to bring the filtered version of yourself. The one that knows how to say all the right things. The one that pretends to have it all together. Bring the real one. The tired you. The doubting you. The hurting, confused, and worn down. You. That's the one He came for. Not the one you think He expects. Not the polished image. But the raw truth of who you are in this moment. Because when you finally let down your guard, when you stop editing yourself in His presence, you'll hear it, the quiet voice of mercy, the tender whisper of God saying, this is the version of you I've been waiting for. Not to scold, not to shame, but to embrace, to love, to hold. He's always wanted you, not your act. And in that sacred space of truth, something beautiful happens. The masks fall, and grace flows in. 15 seconds might seem small to you, barely a blip on the timeline of your day. But in God's hands, those seconds stretch into something holy. They become a cathedral, quiet, sacred, filled with presence. They become a battlefield where fear is defeated and burdens begin to fall away. They become a sanctuary where your heart finally exhales and remembers how to rest. God doesn't measure time the way we do. He's not counting seconds with a stopwatch. He's watching for surrender. Just one moment, one breath, one soft yes can become the doorway to healing. One pause can begin a movement in your life. Not a loud revolution, but a quiet transformation. You take 15 seconds to make room for him, and he responds by filling the space with himself, his peace, his wisdom, his love. It doesn't take much. Not a perfect plan, not a flawless faith. Just one willing pause. One deep breath that says, I'm here. One whisper that says, I trust you. That's all it takes to begin again. God can do more with your 15 honest seconds than the world can do with your busiest hours. In that space, everything starts to change. Not because you moved, but because you let him move in. Ask ChatGPT. Once you've tasted that holy hush, something in you shifts. You find yourself drawn back to it not out of duty, but from a longing deep in your soul. It's not about religion or ritual. It's about relationship. You begin to realize that God never really wanted your packed schedule, your endless doing. What he's always wanted is you, your soul, your heart, your quiet yes. And in that stillness, your vision changes. You begin to see with new eyes. You slow down, not because life gets easier, but because your spirit becomes steadier. You start to live differently, love more deeply, respond more gently. God becomes the center, not the afterthought. The pause you once thought was small becomes the sacred ground where something eternal takes root. That moment you gave him those 15 seconds start shaping everything. They become more than just a pause. They become a legacy, a rhythm, a new way of being. Not rushed, not reactive, but rooted, anchored in him. So go ahead. Just stop. Take the 15 seconds. Close your eyes. Breathe. Let your soul return to the one who made it. That's all it takes to begin something holy. That's all it takes to be changed quietly, forever. Ask ChatGPT.